Might be a server connection issue. It is trying to record. It's been doing this lately. I don't know. There we go. Oh, look, there's something here. What is this? What is this? This is what I heard. It says love bug. I thought I heard wings. It's a bug right there, got caught. I'm not gonna mess with it. You can stay there. Alright, so I was going to play a couple of videos and do the eggs. Turn this off. Already got that metal done. Let's see. Yeah. Let's get a video started. For some reason, it just took forever to start. Here we go. I did update. Alright, this video is from Anton Daniels. Women should have children with multiple fathers. It's okay. A single mother gives horrible advice. Wow. Okay, here we go.
Miss Badu was on The Breakfast Club recently, and I absolutely loved her interview. She had bars. She had a word for us today, ladies, and I'm not sure if the interview was today or whatever the day was, but I happened to see it across my timeline today where she was, someone made a clip about having multiple baby daddies. And girl, that one definitely spoke to me. Having but one baby daddy, right? That one actually really spoke to me because it was it's very eye-opening. If you haven't seen the interview of Miss Erykah Badu on The Breakfast Club, then go and watch it. I'm gonna have to go and watch it. I have not seen the whole thing yet, but that clip has me sold. I'm gonna have to go and watch it. So this is our reminder. We're gonna go and watch the interview. But anyway, so just speaking to some of the things that I heard in the clip, her speaking about having multiple baby daddies and being able to like sidestep or completely miss that labeling that other women will end up getting, the label of being, promiscuous, or being, irresponsible, or just any type of negative association of you as a woman, right? She managed to sidestep all of that, and it's very impressive. It's very eye-opening and enlightening and inspiring, right? Because I made the decision, honestly, to keep having all of my children with the same person because I did not want to be labeled that way. I did not want to be looked at a certain way, which was definitely going to be negative by having multiple baby fathers. As a black woman, if I roll up anywhere with more than one baby daddy, it's already a bad look, especially as someone who was raised by the pastor's daughter, a very, very heavily religious Christian family, is a bad look. So I've already, this is my mind before my frontal lobe fully developed by like age 35. It took a while, y'all. Before that happened, my thought process was very different. I was thinking that, okay, I've already broken away from, the church and my upbringing there. I've already, disappointed, my indoctrination of, I should be married first. I've now had a child out of wedlock.
Disappointed my indoctrination. Give me a second. I'm trying to process it, y'all. Disappointed my indoctrination. We'll get there.
I determined, my brain was like, hey, what we're going to do is just have all of our children with the same man, knowing very well that man didn't even like me, right? That man didn't even like me. But I was determined that I was going to be the best woman, right? By doing the things that the culture would dictate as making me a good woman, right?
So she was more concerned about what the culture felt instead of more concerned about what God felt. So we got to slice this a couple different ways. And before I get into that, I always like to give content or give credit to the content creator. So that link will be down in the description regardless of whether I agree with them or not. Also, T-Chanley, 40% off your first order plus 20% off for life. The problem with people that go into the church, right, or the problem with people that are raised in the church is that they are taught to focus on what the church thinks instead of aligning themselves based off of what the principles of the word says.
Yeah.
And that's how I know that people are broken and they need to heal. And it has nothing to do with God, because there's a lot of purveyors. There's a lot of people that believe or think that they're representatives of God, but they don't go based off of what the word says. In addition to that, they then blame the church for their decision to run away from God. Just because you leave that particular church does not mean that you walk away from God, which also translates, because if her brain is fully developed, then she should really understand that it doesn't matter about what the culture thinks. The only thing that matters is whether or not you align with the principles of the word of God. Now, I'm going to stay away from the religious part of it for the rest of the video. And it's funny because she said that her man didn't even like her, but she continued to have kids with him. Yeah. We'll get there. We'll get there. Let's continue to hear what she has to say. I want to hear the full context before I go into it, all right?
Sticking by a man and having all my kids with this person. So I did that and thinking that was going to have a better outcome. But honestly, what I found happens, ladies, is the more that we try to contort ourselves in a culture, the less our lives are going to be comfortable, the less our lives are going to be rewarding for us if we're contorting ourselves to fit into the culture. Now, if the culture fits you, enjoy it and be comfortable there. By all means, I'm not talking down on the culture, because our culture is very complicated. It's got levels to it. It's got a front and a back. It's got an A and a B side. Okay. Our culture is wild. So, and that's another thing I wanted to speak to too. I'm all full of tangents, is how Ms. Badu managed to speak about culture, speak about our culture, speak about us without putting down a single person, without talking down about a single solitary soul. Kudos. That is universal energy right there. That is universal energy right there. Okay. So back to what I was saying. Hopefully I didn't forget my line of thought. But the point was, we'll find ourselves either trying to contort to fit into culture if it doesn't fit us. And then we'll find ourselves having different types of physical or mental or spiritual ailments, because we're not living our best reality. We're not living our true selves, right? Now, being a child of, being raised initially in the church and all that type of stuff, a child of the pastor's daughter, right? I did my best to toe the lines, right? I stepped outside of the culture that I was raised in, the Christian culture, right? At least that level of it. I stepped outside of that. And so I thought that to try to, redeem myself would mean towing the lines of the culture. So basically remaining tethered to the fence post and just spinning in circles around it, not really ever developing myself further, not really ever getting anywhere in life, not getting any closer to my spiritual goals, my purpose, none of that, because I'm tethering myself to something that does not suit me, that does not fit me. And instead of towing this line and living in misery, I should have cut that cord. I should have just moved entirely away from the fence post and explored what life is for myself, instead of living based off of, even loosely based off of the dogma and indoctrination that I grew up with. Now, a lot of those things, of course, they were always meant with good intention, because we raise our children with good intentions. Most of us, right? The vast majority, right? So all of that was with good intention. I don't mean to say it like it was meant to hurt me in any type of way, not by the people that were passing it down. Maybe by the ones who created the system in the first place, because who does a nuclear family benefit? Really, truly, capitalism and nothing else. I'm going to say it right loud. Nuclear families only benefit capitalism. Wow. They don't benefit the people. They really don't. Some people it fits for you, and for some people it doesn't. So again, we should not be contorting ourselves to fit into boxes that are not. They're not even made for us. These boxes, they were made for capitalism. A lot of these boxes, they were made for different purposes. They were made to be able to control people, to be able to quickly label you, judge you.
All right, so I think I've heard enough. I wanted to see if there was anything else of value that I can get out of that. I don't see anything else that I can take from it before I give my opinion.
Man. She's gone.
And my opinion is that we should not have broken families. There are studies. We have actual evidence, and we can lean into the situations of the people that came before us to realize that having children out of wedlock, especially multiple different people, or even having children with people, according to her words, that don't like you, is not going to translate into an ideal or conducive situation for you or the child. I think that the problem that I hear with this, and this is what I hear from her, is it's always me, 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 how I feel, whatever it is. And the ultimate sacrifice is how you then raise your children who did not ask to be here, but you so focus on how you feel. And now we taking advice from Erykah Badu and having multiple different baby daddies. That's insane. It's absolutely crazy that this is what it's come to. And we have adopted these cultural norms that we think make sense for us, when in reality, this is the reason why the black community is behind in the first place. And the best way for you to do your part, honestly, is to have strong families. We can't blame God. You can't blame men. You can't blame women. You can't blame the culture. You can't blame society. We know too much to still be making these bad decisions on a regular basis. So y'all have to be careful on who you listen to. I know that we embracing anything and everything that is not of God, and then we justifying it by blaming it on the church or whatever it is. But the reality is that we have to be very, very careful. Who you choose to procreate with could be one of the most detrimental decisions of your entire life. And to open up your legs to multiple different people, which then breeds multiple different spirits, and have all of the complications, especially when you include family court law, into these situations that's not ideal for the majority of the population, is not going to translate at all. It's not going to hit. It's not going to be best for you. And it's absolutely going to ruin those children's lives. Forget what you're talking about. It's going to ruin the children's lives. And then ultimately, we know that women, when given an option to choose for themselves, often at times choose wrong. And that's why they need covering. And now they want to sit here and talk about, it's capitalism. Man, get the fuck out of here with that shit. Anyways, make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Let me know what y'all think inside of the comments. I love you. I appreciate you. I'm going to holler at you guys later. Peace.
That's crazy shit. Blaming capitalism because over the nuclear family. People had regular families. That nuclear family is just a regular family. Forever. Mom, dad, and a couple of kids. Uncles and old people like grandma, grandpa. They would live. They would be in the back room, and we would feed them, and we would take care of them because they're too old, and they took care of us. That's the way it was. But when you're single, like I'm single, I have no real family. My sister's useless. I mean, that girl's got nothing but problems, and she can't help anybody, much less help me. So, and she never wanted nothing to do with me either. So I don't see the point to even bothering with her. But the point is, for those of us who have nothing, according to their logic, I should go out and just breed with as many women as I can, like an animal, like a bull running around wild. Just make as many kids as I can, whether I can feed them or not, whether I can take care of them or not. And just breed and breed and breed and have multiple women. If a woman can have multiple men, like she's saying, then a man can have multiple women. Then a man doesn't have to be obligated to one woman. At least that's the logic she's giving, which is crazy. It's crazy shit. If I did that, I had 50 kids all over the place. I'd be very proud of the fact that I bedded so many women, but that's not going to help me put food in the mouths of those 50 kids. You see what I'm saying? You have to be responsible, and you have to decide, who you're going to be with. This woman found a guy that didn't like her, but he liked her enough to fuck her, and give her a pregnancy or multiple pregnancies, probably. He did. He fucked her, but he didn't like her. So he just is following the same rules that she just illustrated. He just fucked her, gave her kids, and that's it. You know? It's over. See, the whole idea behind a family is two people fall in love, they fuck, they have their child. Their child represents their love and their passion for each other, their passion for life and living. And the child leads them into that more innocent path to where they remember when they were young. And it's a challenge to raise a child. It's not cheap, it's not easy, it's a great burden. But when you're a parent and you have your children and you raise your children right and they go out and they make something of themselves in the world, that's something to be proud of. But nowadays, everybody is so selfish. See, that's why Anton said that she was selfish. Because there's nothing in there but me, what's in there for me. Always justifying evil based on environmental circumstances that have nothing to do with it. Capitalism has nothing to do with nuclear families. That's just a standard family. The truth is that she picked the wrong horse to fuck. All right? She picked the wrong horse. And the guy left her. He got tired of her shit. And apparently she's... See, these women don't understand. They're being left because men can't take their shit anymore. And in my case, my father got kicked out because that motherfucker didn't want to work. Men tend to be lazy, good-for-nothings. And if they are good providers, the woman will just make up excuses to make them see them in a bad light. Either way, you can't win because it just depends on the integrity of the woman and the man. If neither of them have any real integrity and neither of them love each other, care about each other, are willing to sacrifice and live with each other. I mean, if I had a wife, in the beginning you're in love and you're worshiping the ground they walk on. When you get older, you kind of get a more mature love where you're not there kissing their ass all the time. But it evolves into more of a super friendship. And you have mutual respect for each other. But these people, they look like they go the way of the dodo, and they're just not doing that. They're not falling more and more in love. Their love is not maturing. The relationship is not maturing. The sacrifices don't want to be made. Everybody's selfish. They don't want to sacrifice anything. So I'm like, why the hell get together to begin with if you're not serious about having a real relationship? Makes no sense to me. And I don't even have a lot of relationships. You know, I'm just saying, well, this is how I would feel if I'm in that situation where I love somebody and I want to be with somebody through thick and thin. Thick and thin. My mother and my stepdad, not my father, my stepfather, because she got remarried, they were living in the park. And she had a baby. She had my baby sister. And we were living out of a Ford LTD. Now, these two did love each other. I saw love in their eyes when they would kiss and all that. So that's why we survived living in the park and we stayed together as a family at that time. Things didn't go bad for a very long time. Very, very, like years and years. When stepdad got sick, he got sick. He couldn't work. He couldn't wipe his own ass. Things went to hell. But that's a disease that really nobody can stop that. Nobody can predict that shit. You know? You can't control that, in other words, is what I'm saying. You can't control when disease will hit you, like my diabetic neuropathy. Drives me crazy. But I'm managing it, and the Lord said, accept your pain and just push forward. And that's what I do. I accept it, and I move forward. I push forward. You know, I'm not alone. I'm not doing this shit alone. But the thing is, with a marriage, I mean, it's supposed to be like you're never alone. You always have your hubby with you. And these people aren't, they're not having decent relationships anymore. Those things are gone. It's all replaced with what's in it for me. How can I be in charge? I want to dominate. I'm the man. I say how it is. I mean, everybody who gets married knows that the woman is usually wearing the pants, frankly. But the thing is, sometimes the woman has to be corrected. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're in the right, 100%, It just depends on the situation. I don't think I got my mutation. Damn it. I want to get my mutation. Anyway, let's see this. All right. So anyway, I got one more video here and see if I can squeeze it in. This is by Ken D. Berry, MD. Butter is dangerous. Eat this instead. New study on butter 2025. This guy's a medical doctor. He's got good diabetes advice. Ken D. Berry, MD. Like I said, I'll put the links in the description.
There's a new study out about the dangers of eating butter. It's been published in a prestigious journal. We're going to break this study down, and I'm going to help you understand, is this real? Is this real science? Should you actually not eat a fat that humans have been eating for thousands of years and replace it with fats that humans have only been eating for hundreds of years? I'm Dr. Ken Berry, a family physician. I've been studying medicine and nutrition for over a decade now. Let's dig into this. So you've probably seen the news reports. Let me pull up a few articles here to give you an example. Here is an article from Newsday. Butter can shorten your life, increase cancer risk. Study finds. So their wording here obviously implies causation. Butter can shorten your life. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Here's another study or another article from Fortune magazine. They have a wellness section. I'm not sure why they don't just stick to money and finance. The title says, just one simple dietary change could help you fight back against cancer and heart disease. Sounds pretty clear-cut. Here's an article from NBC News, a bastion of real news. Eating less butter may improve health, protect against heart disease and cancer. At least they included the word may. I have to give them credit for that. So here is the actual study published in JAMA, Internal Medicine. This is one of the journals of the American Medical Association, who people used to have a lot of respect for. The title is Butter and Plant Oils Intake and Mortality. So I want now a good friend of mine and a colleague, Dr. Gil Carvalho, has already done a video about this study. And I consider Dr. Carvalho, who's an MD, PhD, I consider him a friend and a colleague. I've been on his channel before. I greatly disagree with his dietary recommendations that he gives to people, but I think he comes from a place of a good heart, and he's truly earnest and honest in his beliefs. He tries very hard to make this study important, to make it actually mean something. And I'm about to give you the step-by-step breakdown of why this study is junk science. I put the word science in air quotes because this study, it doesn't actually tell you anything. And I've got a summary here. I want to go over this with you and step-by-step tell you why this study means nothing. Mm-hmm. So first of all, the study design. This is an observational study, which Dr. Carvalho says that, and he gives the weaknesses. There are many weaknesses of an observational study. It's a prospective cohort study. It cannot ever establish causation. So when you see a news article headline that says butter causes or butter can lead to, that's poor reporting on its face. Right off the bat, you can ignore that article. They don't even understand the basics of epidemiology. So it's an observational study design. Number two, self-reported dietary intake. The food frequency questionnaires that they use are given every 4 years. And they ask questions like, how many rashers of bacon do you eat a week? And so most people can guesstimate that, but some of the questions on these food frequency questionnaires are very prone to recall bias. This is well known in the epidemiological literature. There have been studies showing that food frequency questionnaires often lead to either underestimation or overestimation of consumption. These are cumulative dietary averages. The study calculated cumulative averages of butter and plant-based oil intake, which may not accurately reflect participants' actual dietary habits over time. So what we want in medicine and in nutrition and in science in general is we want actual data. We want actual facts that we can then crunch the numbers on and figure out, is this really a problem or not? In an observational prospective cohort study like that, there's no randomization. The patients were not randomized. This increases the risk of confounding. This is well known in observational research. Now, the confounding variables, there's the potential for residual confounding, despite adjusting for multiple confounders, including BMI, smoking, alcohol, and physical activity. Now, when they say adjusting, so we adjusted for obesity. Realize this is a mathematical formula. This is a chemical, a computer model. They can never truly adjust for BMI or smoking or alcohol or physical activity. All they can do is just a good faith effort to try to adjust for that. Very important to understand. Also, healthy user bias. People who are trying to be healthy, who don't smoke, who don't drink, who try to be active and exercise, they've been trained by the mainstream media, the articles I just showed you at the beginning of this video, they've been trained to think, if I want to be healthy, I need to avoid saturated fat. I need to avoid butter and lard and bacon grease and other things. So you get these healthy people who are jogging and who are lifting weights and who are trying to maximize sleep. And then on the other side, the people who are eating the most butter and the most bacon and the most beef are very often people who don't give a damn about their health. They're just eating whatever, smoking whatever, drinking whatever. They don't care. So you get this baked in the cake healthy user bias anytime you do a study like this, and it's impossible to adjust for this. Socioeconomic factors are not fully controlled, meaning that people of lower socioeconomic status tend to just eat whatever. They don't have access to all the information somebody in the top 10% of the income has. They don't have access to a personal chef or to a nutritionist on call for them, or they don't have 5 refrigerators and 3 freezers that they can keep all this healthy food in. They're just doing the best that they can. And then dairy intake and butter consumption was not fully differentiated. The study lumps butter consumption together but does not account for differences in dairy product consumption patterns. Also very, very important. Now, there was a lack of control over dietary components. This study did not isolate butter and plant-based oil intake from the rest of the diet. It makes it very difficult to determine if there's any direct effect. Plant-based oils were grouped together. So in this study, they grouped olive oil, canola, soybean, corn oil, safflower, vegetable shortening. They lumped all these things together. So again, this is not even real data. These are not even true facts that we can then do a study about. There was no differentiation between cooking and uncooked oil use. We know for a fact that if you cook at high temperatures with soybean, canola, vegetable shortening, that it causes oxidation, and that can cause inflammation in the body. This was not accounted for in this study at all. Also, there was a complete lack of looking at or talking about the industrial processing that has to be done on soybean, corn oil, canola, and other vegetable oils. They have to refine it, they have to bleach it, they have to deodorize it, which can, it's been shown that it can induce pro-inflammatory compounds into the oil. None of this was taken into account. The cause of death classification was determined by death certificates. Now, being a doctor for 22 years, I've had to fill out hundreds and hundreds of death certificates. And I can tell you this is one of the least favorite things that a doctor can do. Doctors don't enjoy doing this. We don't get paid to fill out death certificates. So most doctors half-ass this. They're like, I don't know. There was no autopsy. I don't know what really killed this person. So I'll just say heart disease, or I'll just say acute myocardial infarction. Even if there's no evidence of that, death certificates are a terrible, terrible way of gleaning what actually killed a person. And I know if you're not in the medical field, you may be saying, wait, what? Death certificates? Doctors just half-ass that? Yes, all the time. The state death offices are constantly yelling at doctors because doctors will just put heart disease, and you can't do that. They send it back and say, no, you have to be more specific. And very often, I can remember in hundreds of situations where I'm like, this person died at home. The family found them 3 days later. They didn't have an autopsy. They're now in the ground, because you typically don't get the death certificate for a week or two after the person dies. I'm like, how can I possibly know? So I made something up, just like every other doctor does. They made all kinds of cancer and cardiovascular mortality assumptions. The study assumes a direct link between butter and cancer mortality, but does not provide a plausible mechanistic explanation. We've been eating butter and lard and beef tallow for thousands of years. Tell me a mechanistic explanation of how it's now suddenly bad for us. There's no subgroup analysis of omega-6 versus omega-3 ratios. That's also very important. Now, here's a big one, the statistical limitations of this study. The hazard ratios are very small. The hazard ratio for butter is 1.15. So a hazard ratio of 1.0 means there's no risk. So this is literally a tiny possible risk with butter. And then the hazard ratio for plant-based oils is 0.84. Again, this is a very tiny statistical difference. It suggests a very weak association. And it may not be clinically significant at all. And I opine it's not clinically significant. My colleague who believes in a plant-based diet would say, I think it is, but that's just two opinions, and you know what an opinion is worth. Multiple comparisons without adjustment. There are many subgroup analyses increasing the risk of false positive findings. So also this was actually performed in a study that's been going on for decades, and it's done in predominantly white healthcare professionals. Okay, there was a doctor study and a nurse's study. So these results are they applicable to poor Hispanics? Are they applicable to poor African Americans? The vast majority of people in this study are upper middle class white men and women. In depending on if you're talking about the doctor study or the nurse's study, how applicable is that to poorer populations or to other ethnic populations? I think that's a very valid question. This all comes from data that was collected as early as 1990. And remember, the food frequency questionnaires were given only one time every 4 years. And some of this data is coming from the 1990s. Yet, when you look at these articles that were just put out, this is 2025. You're like, this is new research. No, this is not new research. This is research from the 1990s and from the 2000s and from the 2010s. Also, funding and research affiliation. Some of the authors are affiliated with institutions and organizations that have historically promoted plant-based dietary patterns, such as Harvard's Chan School of Public Health, which may introduce bias in the interpretation. And that's one of the biggest hamstrings, one of the biggest Achilles heels of observational data when it's done by someone like the Chan School of Public Health at Harvard. There's no blinding. There's no randomization. So it's very easy for the researchers' preconceived notions, what they believe to be true. It's super easy for that to filter into the results of the data. So as we go on this journey together, trying to rediscover a proper human diet. Keep in mind, every time you see a new headline like this, 99% of the time it is based on a observational study that has very, very weak hazard ratios, that was performed by researchers who believe in a plant-based diet. This is not randomized, controlled, blinded research. This research, first of all, proves nothing, but then when you start to dig into this study, you're like, what the hell? This is worse than worthless. And if you come to that conclusion, then I agree with you, and I think you're right. I think these kind of research studies are worse than worthless. The only thing that this study could help us with is, okay, well, maybe there's something here. Maybe we need to do further research in a more controlled fashion, and maybe a more blinded fashion, so that we can actually get some findings that could actually imply, if not show, causation. But this study, my friends, this study ain't it at all. So as we continue to go down this road together of learning, rediscovering what is a proper human diet, this kind of research is really not helpful at all. In my opinion, if you're watching this and you're like, well, I was thinking about doing a ketogenic diet or a carnivore diet, but I just saw this study about butter. In my opinion, your results, if you said, okay, screw this butter study, I'm gonna go keto or carnivore or ketovore or do the lion diet. I'm gonna do it for 90 days. At the end of that 90 days, your results, how much weight you lost, how much your lab markers improved, how much better you feel, how much better you look. In my opinion, your data that you're going to collect on your 90-day journey of rediscovering a proper human diet is much more valuable to you than the data, the pseudo data, the sort of data that comes from a bullshit study like this one that we highlighted today. Now, if you're ready to start low carb, keto, carnivore, and you're like, yeah, I'd love to do that, but my family's not going to help me. I've got no support. I've got a private community that you can join. It's very affordable, and there are thousands of people from every continent on planet Earth except Antarctica who are doing this journey back to a proper human diet, and we're all doing it together as a giant tribe across 6 different continents. And we'd love for you to join us. If you'd like to join us, there's a link in the show notes. This is Dr. Berry. I'll see you next time.
Yeah, sounded like bullshit to me too. Yeah, it didn't make any sense. Butter is very natural. It's been around a long time. The only time it's a problem is if you have way too much butter. Like if you overdo anything, it's bad for you. Anything. Okay, so where is... okay. I thought this was the... Isn't this where I flew off from? Here it is. I wanted to see if I can teleport part way home. I don't want to have to go all the way to heck over there by manually, there. So this is where I am. So it's close to base. Okay. Alright, let's get home. Let's get home. Alright. So anyway, I'm listening to this guy, and for a moment there I thought he was going to say butter was bad, but it shouldn't be. It's perfectly natural. It's probably one of the more natural. I mean, I use what's it called? Land O'Lakes. I like the olive oil and sea salt butter. That's the only one I use. I don't like any of the other ones. The other ones are kind of shitty. But to me, that's like sea salt is good for you, and olive oil is good for you. And the butter is just perfectly natural. I just don't understand how that could be bad unless you really, really overdo it. I mean, you'd have to really, really overdo it for it to be a problem. You know, it doesn't make sense. But anyway, let's see. Okay, this powered. Okay, so I got 70. Alright, I'll put these out of here. So I thought I'd make some more because I know I'm going to go through all those eggs and eventually I'll stop. But since I'm going to make another base, I'm going to need more storage and things like that. So I thought I'd get it done now while I can. Eventually I have to go start to try to get mutations for health. Because without good health, I mean, it's just as bad as not having good melee or good attack. All right. So I'm just going to put this away. I'm glad it was just a bullshit study. People are full of shit. They're always trying to find all these different kinds of bullshit to justify. See, all those eggs have to be done. There. All of these people, they have to justify their bullshit, so they find these stupid ass stories out of these butt crack magazines that are just looking for something to publish. They don't care if it's right. They only care if it's something they can publish. That's what they care about. But anyway, I'll put the link for this video also in the description in case you're interested in seeing him. I love his videos, especially his diabetes related stuff is awesome. Anyway, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.